Another week is upon us. Another week of Eagles football, and we're back here on the Where Eagles Dare podcast with Lee and Tubby. Thank you for everyone for tuning in each and every week, whether that's on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook Live, and also to all of our podcast listeners, whether you listen on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, or so many of the other ones that are out there. I am Lee, and with me always is Tubby. If you have any questions for us about our podcast or about the Eagles or about the NFL, about anything in general, you can always hit us up on our email address, and that is at lee.bird, that's byrd.eaglesdare at gmail.com. And like I said, it is another week in the NFL. This one is a good one. It's another division matchup that we got going on. And it's the Sunday at 1 o'clock. Thank goodness, another 1 o'clock game, because that's the ones I like. But we're on the road at MetLife Stadium against the New York Giants. First time playing the New York Giants this week, and it's week 13. Or Eagles are sitting here at 11-1, and yeah, we're just now getting ready to play the Giants. Let's take a quick look at the standings here going into week 13, and it's 11-1 the Eagles, 2 games still up on Dallas. And after the Giants and Commanders tied, they're sitting down there at 7-4-1 and 7-5-1 respectively. The Commanders on a bye this week. They finally get their bye. Everybody else in the NFC East has had their bye, but the Commanders. So as always with the division matchup, it's a big deal because these, count overall. They decide tiebreakers, and that 2-game lead over Dallas, it isn't as cushy as we'd like it to be right now. Of course, we'd like that to be, with 5 games left in the season, you'd like to have that, 3 or 4 game lead. And of course, the Dallas has the Houston Texans this weekend, so that they're probably, let's just be honest, they're going to win that game. But the Eagles go into MetLife Stadium. Dallas is already done with the Giants, has beaten them twice. So this is kind of one of those games where, okay, Dallas has done it, so the Eagles have to follow suit and knock the Giants out twice. We play them at the last game of the season, and that may be a meaningless game. But so this one is like the important one. And I was thinking about it this week, going, all right, it's the Giants, and I've always, hated the Giants going back to the 80s and 90s with the Phil Simms and Mark Bavaro and Lawrence Taylor and all those guys. And I was always a Giant hater, even before Dallas, really. Before Dallas emerged in the 90s, I didn't worry about Dallas so much. It was the Eagles and Giants, man. Miracle at the Meadowlands, Herm Edwards, all that good stuff. And now, ever since Eli Manning, retired, the Eagles Giants doesn't seem to have the luster that it did then. And I think maybe it's because it's the Daniel Jones era. They've not been really good at all. So even though the Eagles have been pretty good in the 2000s, the Giants have kind of been up and down. They have Barkley, and he's been a solid rock, but this year it feels a little bit different because they actually have a winning team. 7-4-1. They've won some key matchups. I've been keeping an eye on them, and what they seem to do it with is a lot of defense and running. That's a lot of the MOs for a lot of the teams in the league that really don't have a great passing game. They have to do it with defense. So going into this game with the Giants, how are you feeling as far as like the rivalry? Does this feel like a rivalry game to you, or does it feel like just a division game we got to win?
Right now, it feels like a division game that we have to win, just because the hype train. You can't. It's almost like you can't have two. You got to pick one. So it's either Dallas or the Giants. You got to pick one team in your division that's actually a threat to your season. Right now, Dallas is a bigger threat to our season than the Giants are, man. So, yeah, man, I just think but it's still the Giants. Ooh, it's still the Giants, man. I remember watching the NFL Network a few years back, and this was considered like one of the best rivalries in football. But the best point you made was that also during the Eli Manning era is when all of these things were able to. But we have a lot of history, man. But yeah, man, I think the fact that we can play Dallas again. I know you mentioned Dallas swept them, so it's like, man, we still control our own fate. So division opponent, always going to be tough. If we beat them, it's like an ultra plus, because that means we have beaten at least one team, every team in the division at least once.
Right.
It means nobody will hold the tiebreaker over us. We just need to come out with the better record overall, and that stands for Dallas. So if we just beat the Giants, we at least know that we haven't been swept and we aren't under 500 and on anything in the division, we finish with the top record. Business, then we move on to the playoffs. So I think we control so much in our destiny, and this is a very important game for all those things I mentioned, because where it puts you at in the division. So yeah, man, still feels like a big rivalry, but this is more of a division rivalry, division game, which they're really all rivalry. No division people like each other for the most part. But Dallas is such a clown of an organization that they just make so much noise. You just have to, like petulant children, you just have to, okay, you got to entertain them. Okay, you guys haven't won anything about 26, 27? Oh, that's nice. Okay, just keep giving them like participation trophies while the Eagles and Giants are over here actually doing some winning. So at least we know what it feels like to win in this in these two teams. But yeah, man, definitely it's going to be a hell of a matchup. And Saquon Barkley is still Saquon. He's having a hell of a season this year. And yeah, we'll get more into that later. But that's a good question, man.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was looking for. Because I agree. It's more like just another important game for the Eagles. Because I look at it this way: is if the Eagles win this game, then the Giants and the Commanders have no shot at the division at all, at the division title. They'll be mathematically eliminated from the division. As it is, the Eagles would have to really tank and the Cowboys would have to tank for them to have any deal anyway. But it's still symbolically, that's a big thing. It also keeps the Cowboys at 2 games length. But like you said, before the Cowboys fans start screaming, the Cowboys have had winning records. But you're right, they've not won a playoff game. They've not done anything. They get in the playoffs and they lose, and they've not advanced to an NFC championship game or even threatened to win a Super Bowl. Right. No matter how good teams they've had in the 2000s, the Eagles and the Giants have always been better. So it is what it is. And we'll talk about more of the game in a second, but I wanted to break out some Eagles news to just discuss it. Jalen Hurts named NFC Offensive Player of the Week for a second week in a row. He is the first member of the Philadelphia Eagles to ever win Player of the Week award in back-to-back weeks, which is an outstanding accomplishment. But I tell you what, if you look at the stats, which is just amazing, you see on the left against the Packers, his stats were 153 passing yards, but he had 157 rushing yards and 2 TDs in that game. And then the game against the Titans, it's totally different. 380 passing yards, a 74.4 completion percentage, unreal. 3 passing TDs, and then the 1 rushing TD. So it's man, I tell you what, it is a great to have a guy like this under center. He is a true leader. If we've been talking about this guy since before the season started, and he is the reason the Eagles are where they are. And if you don't believe that, then you're not a true Eagle fan. And I did want to mention that if you didn't see it, it was on one of the websites, the Eagles websites, that 2 years ago today, this very day, here on 8th of December, the Eagles benched Carson Wentz in favor of Jalen Hurts. So 2 years ago today, Jalen took over, and that makes it even more amazing. The fact that he's only been doing this for 2 years, and being able to be where he's at. And, we knew it. Last year we saw flashes of brilliance. We just knew that he needed more weapons. He's got the weapons, and now he's doing what he does.
And they aren't even paying this man. This man's making, and Jalen is one of the lowest paid players on the team. I mean,
not for long.
We all know how that happens, but still, I told Ish this earlier because it's important. I said, when you see young quarterbacks play well, you also have to look at what's around them, and the money that's able to be spent. And I always go back to the Russell Wilson, because he's like one of the greatest examples of when we don't have to pay Russ. They get Russ second, third round. He wasn't even remember they paid Matt Flynn all that money to come over from the Packers, and he had that 4 touchdown game with the Packers. He comes over from the Packers, and he's looking to start for Seattle, and they just draft this guy from out of Wisconsin. NC State, then Wisconsin. Draft this guy out of Wisconsin. We had a hell of a year, but nobody's really paying attention to Russ. Then all of a sudden, Pete Carroll's like, yeah, he's our starter. He's like, he's our starter. He had a good preseason. Yeah. And I think but they was able to build that Legion of Boom behind him, similar to what they're trying to do with the Eagles in that defense. Slade, other cats. I'm not saying they're Legion of Boom, but hey, they only lost one game this year. So anyway, they aren't paying Jalen, man. That's the craziest thing of all of this, is that he's only like 23, 24, to your point, and he hasn't even been paid yet. So we don't know what the ceiling is. I was listening to Colin Cowherd. He's not my favorite guy, but he made a lot of good points. Like, you don't really know what to do with Jay. You don't know what he's capable of, actually, because every game, like he shows you two different styles of play. So it's like you watch a game, it's like, man, you just got to hold on, because what he sucks at one in this game, he may do better in another part of the game. And it's becoming a real luxury for the Eagles, man. And this what's been really taking us on this 11-1 ride this season.
It's an excellent point. It's something you don't really see. You usually see a quarterback has a certain skill set, and if you shut down a part of that skill set, you can in effect shut down that quarterback. But with Jalen Hurts, to me, he's the only one that comes close to describing him is like a Pat Mahomes, where he, like you said, if they shut down his running ability, they take that away and they start playing up on the line of scrimmage to shut down the Eagles' run. They're going to leave the pass open, and it's going to be susceptible, and he can make accurate throws. We've seen it 380 yards against the Titans, because the Titans lined up to try to take away, like they always do, because we saw it in the stats going into the game. They're a tough run defense. They were going to take away Miles Sanders, take away Jalen's running ability. And what did Jalen do? He torches them through the air with his receiving core. And as long as we've got these receivers that can move and get open like they've been doing, they're going to be there for Jalen. Those throws are going to be there. We get Dallas Goedert back, it's just going to get even better. Because before Goddard got hurt, we had so many weapons out on the field, and now we just need him back. So yeah, Jalen is definitely going to earn every penny he's going to get in the offseason when they go to negotiate that contract, and deservedly so. I just hope that it allows the Eagles to look somewhere else to fill needs, to be able to sign some of these other guys that we brought in on one-year deals like Bradbury and Ceedee, to keep these guys around. But we'll see how it goes.
Right.
Also in the Eagles news this week, Brandon Graham, who we love, we know how this guy is a true Eagle at heart. He loves this team. He's been, the strip sack against Brady will always go down in history, one of the biggest plays in Eagle history. Well, he has been named the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year nominee for the Eagles. And I could not think of a better nominee this year to do so. And he just said, quote here, he said he's honored to be named the Eagles Walter Payton Man of the Year. It's been a blessing to not only play in front of the best fans in the NFL, but to have a chance to give back to a community that has now become my home. He's very active in the community, and so we want to wish him the best of luck going forward in the Walter Payton contest. Of course, every team nominates somebody, and you find out by the end of the season who that winner is going to be. But we're going to be rooting for Brendan Graham. Another thing in the news this week is, if you saw the Monday night game between Tampa Bay and New Orleans, it looked there for a minute like New Orleans had that thing wrapped up in the bag. It's 16-3, with about 10 minutes left in the game. Tampa Bay's not doing much of anything. And then, wait a minute. Here comes Tom Brady doing what Tom Brady does. You let him hang around, and he scores a touchdown, makes it 16-10. The Saints go float, gets the ball right back, scores a touchdown with basically no time left on the clock. One of the crazy endings. But what that did was it helped the Eagles out quite a bit. We kind of know that the Buccaneers are going to be in the playoffs. They're going to probably win that division. So we don't really care who we got to meet. We don't care about Brady. If he's in the playoffs, he's in the playoffs. What we do want is the New Orleans Saints to lose. And why? It's because we have their first round pick. So we always got to keep an eye on this. And right now with that loss, with New Orleans at 4-9, we have the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft. So the Eagles could be the number 1 seed in the NFL this year and still get the 5th overall pick. And there's some good talent to be had coming out of this draft. The Eagles could just take their pick of who they want to bring in. So yeah, that's a wealth of riches that the Eagles have got. And of course, we play New Orleans in a few weeks, so we can actually add to that. Hopefully, that's to me one of those things that a lot of people said, well, the season could be wrapped up. It legitimately, if they beat the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, they could even be close to having the number 1 seed wrapped up, or especially the division. but they'll still probably play their starters in that New Orleans game because we're
Man.
playing for that number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy stuff.
yeah. It's man, it's a couple things there. I've been thinking about like how the Eagles should finish the season. I think you mentioned like resting players, but like it's like, man, I think last year that may have hurt us a little bit. It make us I don't think I think Jalen needed every snap he could come across. Last year as a young starter. You got a first year starter, get him as many snaps as possible. If you felt like Gardner Minshew was a good enough backup, then you should have just played Jalen against Dallas, kept him a little sharp, at least a half. At least a half, man. I hate to always use the Patriots as a measuring stick, but when you know how valuable Tom Brady was to that team, and you seen Bill Belichick never took him out, he would just leave Brady in under all circumstances, even though he knows he can't win without him. It's about that sharpness. And I think the Eagles were outmatched, but I think they would have put up a better fight had they came in a little sharper against a really, 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 really good team, man. Defending Super Bowl champs. Defending Super Bowl champs. Tom Brady himself. Not a lot of people has beat that man in the playoffs. But yeah, man, just looking at it, overall perspective is like, man, we need to keep the gas on, because if we mess around and get the number 1 bye, man, we really may have to play. Because imagine 2 weeks without playing. That's
Right.
that's
I think
disastrous.
I think having Minnesota and Dallas be so close to the Eagles is a good thing, because I do think I agree with you.
Good point.
It's a double-edged sword because you don't want to get players injured on the last day of the regular season, but that's a risk everyone's got to take. You would rather risk that and win out, because the Giants is the last game of the season for us at home. The last 2 games of the season are at home. So you want to go out with some momentum, especially like you said, if you got a week off. So yeah, there's a lot to think about coming up. I mean, it's getting crunch time. 5 games left. Let's go. One of the other things that I want to get your opinion on, and this is, I almost feel bad even bringing it up. I really do feel almost bad bringing this up because it's just a silly news story, but it's everywhere right now. So it has to be addressed. We have to talk about this before we get really into the Giants game. Now, out of all the teams that were rumored for Odell Beckham Jr.'s services, out of all the teams that were out there, for some reason or another, the Eagles have been floated now as a possible target for OBJ, and that they're actually that I don't know if it's his agent lying, saying that the Eagles have inquired about his services, but there's some buzz going on, and I got this graphic from Edge of Philly Sports with him in the Eagles uniform, which just looks totally weird to me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot going on. There's this rumor that he had a physical with Dallas and it didn't go well, so they leaked that because they didn't want to look bad for not signing him. And so then he retaliated by saying that he was going to go to the Eagles because he went to 2 other teams. I think it was Arizona and Minnesota, and they didn't leak, his health history. So there's a lot of rumors that he's not ready to play anyway. So I don't know if this is all conjecture. I don't know how I feel about this. I know inside I'm not a big fan of this move if they made it. I think we're good. It would only be like if somebody got hurt, if Devontae Smith went down or Quez Watkins went down like we saw in that game against Tennessee, or God forbid AJ. This would be the only reason this would make sense. What do you think about this rumor?
Man, look, Odell hasn't been Odell since he's played with the Giants. He still had a lot left in the tank when he went to Cleveland, but that just didn't work out. And I guess when you look at it from an overall perspective, maybe it was Baker Mayfield, considering that he's moved on to 2 other teams since then. But overall, and just to keep it short and sweet, I don't see the point. We need guys that can block. We need guys that are explosive. And I don't see him being a necessary mentor for our wide receiver core. I think we have Zach Pascal that can even do that because he's just a veteran. Got AJ Brown. He hasn't been in a long time, but veteran guys now. So I just don't see the point in it. I think there are a lot of other receivers out there that are healthier than Odell. We know Odell's good, but you tore your ACL in the Super Bowl, so that was February. So we have like February, I don't do math in public, but so now it's about 10 months, okay? 9 months. Man, maybe he's not even ready to play. I think the only reason why Dallas wouldn't sign him, because Jerry Jones is the ultimate salesman, ultimate businessman. If he knows that he can make a couple $1 million just off of Odell Beckham Jr.'s Dallas Cowboy jersey sales, can you imagine those jerseys?
Yeah.
Odell jerseys. Oh my, Bo Bell. Even if he doesn't catch a pass, just so they can have it, Jerry would have made that move. But I think he did the physical. He had the people he trusts there and told him, this ain't it. He's not ready to play. And so I don't see why the Eagles would need him unless we put him on just sign him to keep him on the practice squad and may need him for the playoffs. But we know that's not going to happen. You know, I'm not going to say he has like a Cristiano kind of effect to him, but everywhere he goes, people are going to want to see him play, and he's going to make a buzz, and people are going to want to see him. Nobody wants to see Odell on the practice squad.
Yep.
So I don't see the point.
I think that like we said, I think this is the agent being coy, right. Trying to generate some interest with Dallas again.
He's doing his job.
Yeah, because when Nick Sirianni was asked about it, he gave the coach's answer, but it was pretty definitive. Nick said, "I'm really happy with the room that we have. One of the best wideout rooms in the NFL, in my opinion. We've got some good ones. These are the best ones we've had. I obviously love AJ. Everybody knows what AJ and Devontae are doing right. Then you have Quez who is continuing to come on and continuing to make plays, continuing to be that big receiver we need." Then you have Zach Pascal, who's very critical to a team, the type of play he brings. Your fourth has to be a special teams contributor, which Zach is. He has to be willing to do the dirty work and back up every single position, which he does. So I think Nick is saying, yeah, I don't know where this is coming from, but if it were up to him as head coach, he's probably not going to make that deal. Like I said, my only thing would be if one of the guys goes down. Otherwise, I wouldn't touch Odell. I don't even know if I would touch him even if one of the guys go down, just because of the history that he's had. You know, he's known as like kind of a locker room cancer. He doesn't have time to build chemistry with Jalen Hurts before the playoffs. They're right around the corner.
Yeah,
be able to come in and learn the playbook and be able to fit into this offense. I don't know. I was kind of shocked when I saw it, and I just don't like it.
I think when you have a lot of alpha males in the room, I think you can put him on that team. There was no alphas in Cleveland, but there were alphas when he got to the Rams. You think Aaron Donald going for any of his mess? He gonna tell him, sit down, shut up. You know, you have Matthew Stafford as your quarterback, a veteran quarterback. You think Matthew Stafford's going to put up with anything? No, sit down and shut up. So I think remember Big Dude, Whittingham.
Yeah.
Nearly like 20 years, 20 something years. Man, he's a great analyst now. I think he's on Amazon, but he things like Whittingham.
Yeah, he is.
He's a good analyst. Very charismatic. I like the guy, man. But you got guys like that when Odell comes over, he's not even trying it because he understands. So Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Mailata, Johnson, they're not going for that bullshit. So I don't worry about that. I just don't think he's healthy enough to play for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll move on from that. If it happens, it happens. I'm not holding my breath or caring. But so let's go into this giant game and talk about it here real quick. The first thing that we really need to discuss is who is playing for the Eagles this week. And we got some good news and bad news on the injury front this week. The good news is, hallelujah, the Eagles open Avonte Maddox practice window. Not that Josiah Scott was doing bad. I was worried about Scott, but he's actually filled in quite well. But there is a difference in having Avonte Maddox in the slot corner versus, a guy that's coming off the practice squad and, kind of been trying to make the team in the offseason. Avonte is the real deal. So it's nice. They all signs port to him playing on Sunday, that he is ready. He is practicing. And so that's a good thing. On the bad side of things, we've got word that Robert Quinn is having a knee scope this week, and he is going to go on injured reserve, and his regular season is done. He might be able to play in the playoffs. The bad thing about this is how he usually wins with these We were kind of excited when Quinn was traded from the Bears. We gave a 4th-round pick for Quinn. I was kind of nervous if you saw the video when he showed up at the Eagles practice facility and he was limping already. He looked like an old man, and I didn't want to say anything then. I'm just like, maybe he's tired from the flight. But man, he was hobbling around the facility. And I'm like, that doesn't look good. And then he came into the games and he just didn't do anything. So we definitely needed somebody to replace Barnett. He wasn't it. We probably should have gone with Roquan instead and made an offer for him, but it worked out the way it worked out. We're going to move on. Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick have been playing great at defensive end, so we're going to keep looking to them. As far as the rest of the Eagles starters and reserve players on the injury report for the Eagles, some pretty good signs. We've got Bradley, who's now a backup linebacker. He's been playing his hamstring. He's got an injury. He did not practice on Wednesday. He's questionable, but signs report to playing. Got more news on Gardner Johnson. They expect his return to be at week 17, the last game of the season, or they may just hold him out for the playoffs. But Gardner Johnson will be back. He has the lacerated kidney. He's recovered. Some more great news. Dallas Goedert looking to open their practice window for Goedert's shoulder injury next week against the Bears for week 15. Then we already mentioned Devontae Maddox and Robert Quinn. Quez, we saw him during the Titans game, hurt his shoulder during that kind of razzle-dazzle type play that only got like 3 yards. Now he's questionable against the Giants, but he was limited participant in practice. So that's a good sign. And Kazir White was also a limited participant in practice on Wednesday, questionable for week 14. I think they expect Quez and Kazir to play. Now, that is a good and a bad thing. I think that we want to see more Nakobe Dean. Not that anything against Kazir, but I would love to see it if they, rotate them in and out. I think it's time for Dean shown that he needs to be in the lineup a little bit in this game. Now, the interesting thing is, I don't even put this up on a slide. If you look at the Giants injuries, man, it goes on and on. I didn't have a big enough slide to put up the Giant injuries that they're dealing with this year. It's amazing that they're at where they're at. They are in a bit of a rough patch game wise, and when you look at their injury report, it kind of shows because Barkley had injured his neck in the last game. He's questionable to play against Philly. He will probably play. He did not practice on Wednesday. Then they have a defensive tackle. Davidson's hurt. Izudu, an offensive guard. Holmes, Darnay Holmes is hurt. They're one of their corners. Adoree Jackson is out for the season. He's expected. Actually, no, he's expected to return week 15, but he's out against the Eagles. He hurt his knee, and that's a big loss for them. They have really severely injured as far as corners go. That's the other corner. Nick McLeod is injured, and he's questionable. He's a limited practice, but he'll probably play, but he's already banged up. So when you look at there, and then they also have Aaron Robinson, another corner, is banged up. So looking up and down the line, and we already know that Sterling Shepard's out with an ACL for the year. Wan'Dale Robinson's hurt as another wide receiver. So I was going down their injury list for the Giants. I'm like, man, how are they doing it? I mean, really, they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth with their walking wounded.
Yeah. Did you see the guy Janarius Robinson? We activated him off the he's never played a game, so FYI, he's not saying it's the tape on him. He was a rookie, got drafted last year, was on the IR all year. He got released, and then we picked him up, but he hasn't played yet, and we just activated him from injury reserve. I wonder if we can just catch this young, just drafted in 2021. I wonder if out of 4th round, out of Florida State, I just wonder if we can catch a little lightning in the bottle because Barnett goes down, Quinn goes down, 2 guys that are, Barnett's not, he plays old, but he's not old at all, like mid-20s.
Right, yeah.
But this guy's in the sack machine, only 8 sacks in college over 4 years, but went to Florida State. So he has that Florida State in him, and that big game in him, even though they haven't been that great for a while. But it's just something just weird, like, I wonder if this Robinson guy can come off and get a few snaps from Sweat and let's see what he does. He's a big dude, and he's super fresh. Has not played an NFL game yet. Can you imagine him getting a few snaps in the playoffs just to be disruptive off his youth alone, and just considering that these guys are so banged up. You look at our injury report, it's not a little nagging injury. It's week 14, man. These guys are hurting. They've been hitting and practicing since like April, and they are hurting. So, yeah, man, I don't pay too much attention to like the little nicks and but they're all important, man. But at this point, it seems like everybody has something to report. I just threw that little wild card out there just to say, Janarius Robinson. If it happens, it happens.
It's a good point. You know what? To me, I think when you're on a good team and you come into play and everybody around you is playing well, that our subs like Josiah Scott and Reed Blankenship have come into a great situation. They're coming into sub, but they're playing with 9 guys that are fired up and that know what they're doing. And so they have to fit in and they have to play now. And you have seen these 2 guys, Scott and Blankenship, ball out in the last couple of games because they have no choice and they're really giving it their all. So part of me is like, yeah, Vontae's coming back, CD will come back, but we want to keep those guys in the lineup as well because they've proven that they're assets. So yeah, if this guy Robinson comes in and does the same thing, let's do it. Because we don't want Hassan Reddick and Sweat to be the only ones out there at the end positions because they're going to get gassed by the end of games. And we want them coming. That's when we want them coming at the quarterback like they did against the Giants. Let's take a look at the defensive and offensive rankings and give our analysis on this. Is that if you look at the Eagles right now, they have the 3rd ranked offense in the NFL, 388 yards a game against the Giant defense, which is ranked currently 22nd overall. They're passing. The Eagles are 12th at 247 yards. They're 5th in rushing at 154 yards. So pretty balanced attack right now, if you ask me. The Giants defense, they're 17th against the pass at 231 yards, and they're 26th against the run, giving up 141 yards a game. So again, we're looking at kind of like, well, this is a kind of situation for the Eagles where they're banged up on corner, where you could pick your poison in this game. If they're really letting teams run on them like they are. I mean, if you look, the Eagles rushing defense has slowly crept up week after week. They were down at like 22nd during the Texan game, 22nd, 23rd, and now they're up to 17th, giving up 117 yards a game. So they're actually a better rushing defense than the Giants right now. And to me, it's like one of those things where I think the Eagles really are better than their 17th ranking right now. So the Giants are kind of in this, like I said, they're kind of in this like little bit of a struggle. And so the Eagles can really take advantage of that with both a run with Miles Sanders, getting them off balance with runs by Jalen Hurts. And then once they have to creep up to stop Jalen and Miles, then you got AJ. I mean, it could be a really good game offensively for the Eagles, even on the road. And the other side of the coin, the Eagle defense, like I mentioned, they're 17th against the rush. But right now, they're number 1 in the league against the pass, giving up 203 yards. I can't believe I just said that. And then overall, they're 2nd in the league at 296 yards a game average given up. The Giant offense, on the other hand, 22nd in the league. So they're 22nd in defense, 22nd on offense. They're 28th in the league in passing. So near the bottom of the league in passing. And they're 6th in rushing. And that's, it's Saquon Barkley. What do you got? The Eagles are 5th. The Giants are 6th. So they got Saquon and not a lot else going for them right now. So when you look at those numbers, we've seen a game against Green Bay. They had a weak run defense, and we totally exploited it. We've seen a Tennessee Titan game where they had a weak pass defense, and we totally exploited it. So where do the Eagles attack in this game? When you look at those numbers, you see the Giants are susceptible to both.
Right. I see. It's almost like see what breaks them first, and then keep doing it. So, yeah, man. All year we just. To me, I don't worry about the Eagles as much as like what they can do. I just feel like, they're just they have an incredible offensive line, incredible run game, nice, good young quarterback, solid receiving core, still really young. We just have to stop that run, man. If all this goes out the window, if Saquon just gashes us all game long, which I will admit he hasn't done this year. He's had good games, but he hasn't just been like even though they're 6th in rushing, which is like crazy, because I watch a lot of the games because I have Saquon on my roster. Saquon, he does his thing, but they lost Tony this year. They didn't lose him. They traded him away to Kansas City, so it really leaves Galloway. Is it Galloway? What's his name? Galladay, and that other guy, man, I forgot his name. I had it all right up here. Now I'm like spacing. But anyway, we have a better team, period. Talking about pick your poison. I think on games, I think we just see what works. You know how we'll come out some games and we'll pass happy. And then if it doesn't work, we'll just shut it down and go to the run. You know, and vice versa. We'll come out and mix it up, or we come out and the pass is working, we'll just keep passing. I think with the Giants, man, we just don't need to let them get comfortable. It's a division game. So all those stats, man, I remember like so many times watching Indianapolis play Tennessee Titans, and no matter what the Tennessee Titans record was against Indianapolis, it didn't matter. They just beat them. It's like the weirdest stuff. You know, some teams just have your number. So Commanders, we were way better than the Commanders going into that game, but we ended up beating ourselves. So I think I've been consistent all year, which is more so like, man, we just need to continue to impose our will on these teams. And what we've noticed is that other teams don't have the ability to switch up on us. So when we stop them, we really stop them. Like, look at what we did to Indy in the second half with shutting Taylor down. Look what we did to Tennessee, period. Like, it's kind of quiet as kept, but people are like, dang, the Eagles just really beat the Titans 35-10 because it is a big deal. It is a big, that Titans is a well-coached football team. They've been constantly, since Tannehill's been there, they've always been in the mix. Last year, they were number 1 seed going into the playoffs before Henry got hurt. I'm just making those. Yeah. These are really good teams and they're beating.
They could just come off a narrow loss to the Bengals, who beat the Chiefs.
Right.
So who own the Chiefs, the Bengals do. And the Bengals are on the rise. And so Tennessee held them to the wire. And so you got the Bengals, who everybody is considering a possible return to the Super Bowl, and yet the Eagles treat the Titans like they're redheaded stepchild. Yeah,
unbelievable.
And you know what? I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole, but you're right. The media did not give the Eagles victory over the Titans. They didn't even show it during the 2-minute drill on Monday Night Football on the highlight. How do you not show the Eagles beating the Titans? They show everything else, but they'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys beating up on a Colts team that is an underachieving Colts team. God love them, but they brag on that. But yet the Eagles barely a ripple because they don't want to recognize it. This is the thing with the sports media, the national sports media. And I don't want to go too far in this, is that these national sports medias, they're fair weather fans. They went to just whatever, name your college, to learn sports media, and all they know are the popular teams. That's all they've been raised on. So they only worship the Cowboys or the New York market or the LA market. That's all they want to talk about. And you got this blue collar Philadelphia team that has this reputation for having rowdy fans and being low class and low brow. And they don't want to have anything to do with this. It's just like 2017 all over again. They're begrudgingly accepting our existence at the top of the league, but they sure as hell don't want us there.
Right.
End of rant. But you're right. And I think with this game, because when I first looked at it, I was kind of like, oh man, 7-4-1 Giants, Saquon Barkley. And then you start breaking down the numbers and looking at everything the Eagles done. This is another one of those games we've talked about. On paper, the Eagles should dominate this game. That on paper, the way they have been playing, you looked at the rankings offensively and defensively. The one thing you said, like they have to do, is do what they've been doing the last few weeks. They shut down Aaron Jones and Dillon. They shut down Jonathan Taylor. They shut down Derrick Henry. They have to shut down Saquon Barkley. They do that, they win this ball game. Daniel Jones should not be able to beat you. Daniel Jones should not be able to beat our corners. There's no way. And Darius Slayton is the other receiver you were talking about. Darius Slayton and Kenny Golladay should not be able to beat. If you put Devontae Maddox out there covering their tight end or their slot receiver, again, now you've just gotten even better as far as they be able to stop. This is about what can Gannon do, Jonathan Gannon, our defensive coordinator, what he can do to make sure that we have Sue, Joseph, Jordan Davis, and company, Fletcher, blocking that middle to force Saquon to the outsides where Sweat and freaking Reddick can eat him up, and then our other linebackers can eat him up. So yeah, it is all about stopping Saquon. And I brought up the statistics of the last 5 games. We know what the Eagles have done. Yes, they lost to the Commanders, but since then they've won 3 straight against the Colts, Packers, and Titans. But look at the Giants' last 5 games. Just take a look at that. Lost to the Seahawks 13-27 on the 30th of October. They barely beat the Texans, so we handled the Texans even though they struggled in the first half. The Eagles blew them out second half. 24-16 beat the Texans. That's their only win in the last 5 weeks. That's their only win, is a 24-16 win over the Texans. The Lions beat them 31-18. We know we beat the Lions. The Cowboys beat them a second time, 28-20. Gave them all the Cowboys could handle. That was a close game.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the only thing that makes the Eagles game a little bit worrisome, because it is a division game. Just like with the Commanders, they're going to play better than their record. This is a division game. They're at home and against an opponent they really want to beat. So they're going to play much better than their last 5 weeks. Let's not disregard that fact. But then against the Commanders this last week, they tied 20-20, and that was just both teams comedy of errors and mistakes and everything like that. If you watch that game, you couldn't help but laugh as an Eagles fan. So you look at that and you know that the Giants are on the struggle bus right now. They really are. So it's like, what can the Eagles take advantage of that, or do they let the emotion that the Giants are going to be trying to ride, because they're desperate for a win? The Giants are starting to see their season slip away.
Oh, yeah.
They lose this game. They're tied for last place in the division with the Commanders at 7-5-1, and they're going to start asking themselves, what the heck are we going to do? So that's the only thing that I think even gives them hope in this game, is the knowing of what the alternative is and being able to just try to continually run Saquon down the throat. But I don't know if that's even going to be good enough. If the Eagles play the way they're capable of and the way they've been playing each and every week, this should not be much of a problem. It really shouldn't. I don't want to sound like that fan, but we've watched them all year. And now we know what happened when they went into Indianapolis. They did not play well in the first half, and it could happen all over again. Comedy errors, penalties, hurting themselves, like you said. That could definitely happen. So
law of averages. I think that's what caught up to the Giants season. Like, it's just a law of averages, man. Like, you can start one way, but there's a reason why certain quarterbacks, like at the end of the day, they all stay around the same numbers of completions, and, teams staying around the same number in the record, because those averages start to just change on you. You look at how the Giants started the season. They were like, 7-1, 7-0. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah.
And then you go on this stretch where you should have won at least half these games, and you don't. It's just the law of averages catching up to you. All those close games that you won earlier in the season that you probably should have lost, now the ones that you are losing are justified, because you haven't been playing that great. You just been winning, which is good enough. The Eagles kind of did that towards the end of the season. It's not that we played great. We were just winning. We just found a way to win and get us into the playoffs. Right now, we're not finding ways to win. We're winning. Like, we're going out there. The Eagles look like the team dictating the pace. Man, dictating the pace regardless of the spread. Mind you, that was a 4.5 point spread against Tennessee Titans, and we beat them by 25 points. And we beat them by more points than they've given up all year. We beat them by more than that was our margin. They're normal. They're you get where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah.
What they are used to giving up defensively every game, which is less than 20 points, that was our margin of victory between the Eagles and the Titans. But I'm not, whatever. I just hope the law of averages don't catch up to us, where, remember I said it earlier, like, we've had some messy games, but we haven't had that terrible game yet. I'm just a transparent fan, man, and I just play sport. I just know you're gonna have that moment. Nobody's above it. That's why an undefeated season is so spectacular, because it's like, what? Normally teams have at least 3 to 4 terrible games a year. Go 12-4. Used to, right? Go 12-4, make the playoffs. Now it's go 13-4, make the playoffs. And that's what that's like the Chiefs versus the Colts. The Colts aren't better than the Chiefs. The Chiefs just had that game. It's nobody's above it. You will have it. We had it against the Commanders, which is resulted in our loss.
Right.
And I'm just saying that we're not above it, even going back and going through the rest of the season, because our guys may start to switch off. Just natural human things happen, bruh, where people just go, they think they see the finish line because this season was so much different than last season, and then you start to lose focus,
Right.
And then the Eagles will get all the attention in the world if they lose focus.
Oh,
so
sure.
If we can just stay the course, man, I just think we can continue to dictate. Because man, our lineup, defense, offense, I think these guys would start anywhere else as well too, man. I think we've kind of put together a nice squad, a cohesive squad, and I like my chances against the Giants, man. I think the only way this game goes wrong is the same way against the Commanders. That's if we literally do something unprecedented, like three turnovers in 8 games and then 4 in 1 game. What? Yeah. That's all the averages catching up on you. That gives you 7 now. Ha ha. You know what I mean? You go from like this. How you guys only have 3 to you got 7 now? It's like 1 a game. Like you get me? Like it just catches up to you, man. And just can't stop it sometimes because it's just the law of that. I don't want to sound like a side, but it's just
no,
how it
I hear
works
you.
out. Yeah, I've watched sports so long, it just happens.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the thing is that we did have a bad game against the Commanders and some turnovers and just things didn't go our way. We had a really bad half against the Colts with just penalties. I'm glad that they kind of had all those penalties they had against Tennessee, because that's in the back of their minds to come back out in this game and play a little bit more flawless. It goes back to 2017 with the Super Bowl winning season. We had that game against the Seahawks where we went in Seattle and just got their butts handed to them, and everybody went, "Oh, maybe the Eagles aren't as good as they thought they were." Then we ripped off, a bunch of wins in a row to make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. So it does happen. So I'm not saying that the Giants don't have a chance to win this game. I'm just saying when you look at everything, they shouldn't win this game. It should be the Eagles winning it, even if you want to say a close one, but like 27-17. What score do you got in this one?
I think the Eagles should be able to go 30-10. Birds. Yeah, man. Only way we lose the game, we hurt ourselves. I don't see how they can just beat us. I think, Daniel Jones can run, so you always have to be one of his greatest highlights when he tripped. That was against the Eagles, but he I think it was going to be like an 80-yard touchdown or something like that. The turf monster just jumped up and grabbed the shoestrings and just toppled over. So, Daniel Jones can be like an Eli Manning, just this quarterback you don't know what he doesn't do anything great. Eli Manning didn't do anything great. He just didn't do anything ridiculously bad. And that's how he was able to stay around for so long. And a lot of quarterbacks, have a whole career off of that. Just don't be ridiculously bad. You'll miss the playoffs and shit like that, but don't be ridiculously bad, man. I got 30-10, man. Birds. Holding Saquon under 70 yards. I'm charging the defense. You see the difference in the stats. You say, I can't believe that I'm saying that. Like the rushing, got Linville and Sue in those gap assignments. I don't think the casuals understand that how much gap assignments, like when you don't do it, it makes everything else look bad because of the minor details aren't taken advantage or aren't taken care of. It's like putting a washer on a bolt. You got to pay attention to the details. Like you need that lock nut. You need that. That's going to make it better. When you don't do that, you could be susceptible to damage and loss. So the Eagles are saying, wait, man, fill those gaps.
We can't understate the importance of Linval Joseph and Sue, because they're coming in, they are making an impact on the defensive line, and they're also coming in fresh. Like this is the beginning of their season. So they're still amped up and hyped up, and that's infectious to the rest of the team. What I couldn't believe, though, was looking at that second-ranked Eagles pass defense, knowing how Gannon is with the shell coverage. It just blows me away. And you've got to really give Bradbury and Slay a lot of the credit for that, and even Gardner Johnson. And let's just throw Epps in there as well, because they've been able to to really stand up against the better receivers in the NFL and shut them down. The who you see making plays against the Eagles game after game is the tight ends and some of the slot receivers making plays. You don't really see a lot of the wide receivers beating the Eagles. And we'll see what happens this one. So we'll see how it goes. But it's going to be fun. It's, another Sunday afternoon, and this one at MetLife Stadium in New York, not far from Philadelphia. So the Eagles don't have far to travel, and it is a division game against the hated New York Giants. It's an important one, and we'll be here to watch it, and we'll be able to cover it next week to break it down no matter win, lose, or draw, whatever. Hopefully not a draw. Can you imagine Giants draw 2 weeks in a row? But anyway, thank you all for tuning in to the Where Eagles Dare podcast, whether you're on our regular podcast listener on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, or so many others, or whether you watch us on the live stream on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook Live. We really appreciate you coming in each and every week. If you enjoy the show, tell your friends and make sure they tune in as well, especially if they're an Eagles fan. They're going to hear good stuff like this. So if you want to send us an email or comment or question, you can do so at our email address. It's lee.bird, that's byrd.eaglesdare@gmail.com. Eagles versus Saquon Barkley on Sunday. We're amped up for this one. It's Giants week. There's nothing else that needs to be said from here on out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tubby with his final words of the week.
Sir, thanks everybody for coming by the Where Eagles Dare podcast. Eagles 30, Giants 10. But however we get the dub, I'll take it. Only time I want to see my team 11-1-1 is Chelsea. That is it. Only Chelsea can be 11-1-1. I don't want to see any three columns on my team's record. Okay, put them in their place, set the tone, go to 12-1, which will put you in the driver's seat of your destiny, man, for at least your division, and keep the rest. Keep the pressure on the rest of the NFC. You know what I'm saying? So with that said, man, fly, Eagles, fly.
And go Birds. We'll see you next week, guys.